Hello, hello, my beloved waking gods and goddesses. Welcome to my new YouTube channel, Love, Truth, and Beauty. Do it yourself for Divine in the Flesh, where your PTSDs, your pains, traumas, suffering, and dramas are golden gateways to waking up and staying awake, where we learn to navigate the ups and downs of the totality of human experience in this perception-managed reality, where our seven senses in our true sensual sensorial world have been squished and dumbed down into the limitations of five-sense reality. Before we get started, please do give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, and choose the all choice in that notification drop box. Please comment and share. I upload videos Tuesdays and Fridays, 2 p.m. Eastern. So in today's video, I'm changing things up a little bit and bringing back into the spotlight pioneers of new paradigms. That is groundbreaking, shit-disturbing way-showers, leading us out of the limitations of this consensus reality, like painful childbirth, for instance. So today, I'm sharing with you all probably my most favorite interview that I've ever done out of all my radio show years, including my show Divine Nation on the VoiceAmerica platform and on the BlogTalk platform, the HumanSpirit Radio Network, my show Waking Gods and Goddesses. This is a timeless replay of the interview I did with the delightful and beautiful, my lovely friend Amber Hartnell, regarding her orgasmic-ecstatic birthing of her first child in 2005, along with her take and new thoughts and offerings on conscious parenting. So, beloveds, do sit back and relax and enjoy this very moving interview, meditation included.
Hello, my beloveds, and welcome to the Human Spirit Radio Network, and welcome to our show, Waking Gods and Goddesses, Embodying Divine Wisdom and the Sensual Life. My name is Maria West, and I am your hostess of the highest, Way-Shower and Divine Love Agent Provocateur of this Waking Gods and Goddesses global movement, here to download, upload, inspire, and usher you into your bestest and brightest light, your bestest and brightest self, inviting you all to open your hearts, opening them up wider and wider still, emptying your minds and inviting all our neglected inner children, our punky, rebellious, misunderstood teenagers, our stressed out, frustrated, overworked, and under-pleasured adults to come out of hiding, come out, receive, and play, inviting you all to give your bestest love and appreciation to one and all, particularly beaming love and our gratitude to our beautiful planet Gaia. And here we are again, sharing this time and space in this gorgeous matrix of light and love that spans the curvature of our earth in all directions. I so appreciate our collective activation of engaging the new feminine way of creation based on collaboration with the new masculine, co-creation of cyberspace and all the expanded realities our phone lines and internet connections have made possible for all of us to connect, share time, sacred space, and energy together in global community. This is the 158th broadcast of Human Spirit Radio Network and our 26th episode of our show, Waking Gods and Goddesses, Embodying Divine Wisdom and the Sensual Life. We are kicking off our second program of our third full year with Human Spirit Radio, and today's delicious show, Orgasmic-Ecstatic Birthing, with beloved Amber Hartnell, who is with us live from Hawaii. But first, I want to give a shout-out and some big love, sugar smacks, and gratitude to our divine in the flesh, uber goddess and techno engineer, Jessica Varga Mackay, who's holding space for us from wintry East Coast, New Jersey. And there you have us, kids. The trifecta of feminine wisdom aboard the mothership of our founder, the Sarah McCroskey of Human Spirit Radio Network. So, as per usual, beloveds, meditation time, light a candle or two, get yourself situated in your cozy, comfy places with your pillows and blankets, be snugly, have some water or tea ready, your tissues, your journals and pens close by. And just close your eyes, beloveds, and let's all receive a deep breath in. Letting it out, allowing ourselves to fully arrive and land right here, right now, wherever your here and now happens to be. Just as you are, nothing to do, nothing to figure out. And just allowing the breath to fill our bodies with life force, pranic energy of all the colors. Trusting your body to receive the colors that it needs to move into greater awareness, greater clarity. That's it, beloveds. Nice and easy. Breathing in your own timing, your own rhythm, in your own way. That's it. On a huge inhale, bring your palms together, pressing them into each other in the front of the middle of your chest, in front of your heart. That's it. Nice and easy. Breathing in and out. And on each exhale, feel your body relax and let go, dropping your awareness from your mind into your body. Notice any bodily sensations as you breathe in and breathe out. On a huge inhale, move your palms still in prayer position or a namaste in front of your heart, and move them so that you move your palms just in front of that most sensitive part of your heart. Trust that you know where this sensitive part is. Trust in your knowing, even if you feel like you've no idea what you're doing. This sensitivity, beloveds, that you're feeling is your closure to love. So just notice it, allowing it as it is. It's just based on fear. And notice that as you recognize that, your heart naturally relaxes and opens. It radiates the love that you are. And consider that any pain in your heart or heartache is about your mind telling your body to close to connection. Remember, the natural state of our hearts is open. Closure of our hearts is unnatural, and that's why it hurts. So just notice, feel into your heart opening. Feel that glorious relief to be as you are, an expression of divine love. You are the divine in the flesh. Nice and easy. Keep breathing, my beloveds. Now I want you to place your right hand over your heart and your left hand over your belly. And if you feel inspired, you can place your left hand over your yoni or phallus, breathing in and out for a few cycles. As you do so, connect your awareness to your heart and to your yoni, your phallus. Our yonis and phalluses are deeply connected to our hearts, beloveds. So let us collectively dissolve any arising feelings, perhaps, of guilt, of shame, allowing the heart to metabolize and transform these feelings, emotions, thoughts, traumas, into more love. Breathing out that love, sharing that love out into the world, or directing that love to your yonis and phalluses for more healing. That's it, beloveds. Nice and easy. reveling in your being, your awareness that you're experiencing. Magnifying your awareness, lingering in the ease of being aware. Nothing for you to do except be that awareness. And whatever's happening for you, allowing it to be as it is. Nothing for you to do or figure out. Just be. Allowing any thoughts, sensations to come and go like a breeze. Just noticing them. Noticing your breath, its natural rhythm. Noticing the sensations in your body, this miraculous and beautiful temple of you as waking God, waking goddess, you as the divine in the flesh. Breathe deeply, beloveds, resting and abiding in this profound stillness and silence. We are awakening. We are remembering who and what we are. Knowing and embodying our divinity of being source, God, Goddess, all that is, infinite loving awareness and consciousness, ever being, ever evolving, ever becoming, having a human experience. All for the highest good, the deepest possible truth, the innermost clarity and peace and most profound of healing. And so it is as we co-create a grid of electric violet light surrounding us in all directions over the curvature of our planet, setting the intention that all energies and entities, tribal and matrix system realities alike, including the powers that want to be and any and all false light, artificial timeline matrices and all intra, extra-dimensional portals and doors that may have opened, blocking and interfering with our divine, creative, erotic natures, that they be instantly dissolved and or returned to their sources. Jai Ma. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And as you adjust and look around you, wherever you are, I invite you to pull in your consciousness through your sense of sight, your eyes and what you see into the middle of your head, and notice the soft, focused nature of what you're seeing, and internalizing that vision. And if you want, you can gently move back and forth from this heightened awareness reality to normal reality and check out the difference for yourself. Play with this, beloveds. This is a great way to remain still whilst interfacing with the outside world and maintaining a deep relationship to the silence within, so as to not get caught up in the pendulum swing of the chaos of conventional reality. You know the status quo. Normal reality of one thing after another, after another, after another, after another, or sleepwalking through life on autopilot. One of the main reasons to practice regular meditation is to be better able to stay still and aligned and vertical amidst times when we can be highly reactive and identified by outer circumstances, by the world at large, intense events happening in real time, crazy emotional crowds, the traffic, the stresses of trying to keep up with those endless lists of things to do. When we temporarily get caught up and entangled in the false timeline realities of this left brain addicted world of doing, or triggered by all the mirrors and mirroring of all our relationships and interactions. Utilizing meditation allows us to dial down our nervous system, rebalance ourselves, contain and conserve our creative energy so as to not to lose power, especially when the unexpected happens and life happens. Being spiritually awake, being present, being enlightened requires that we not avoid anything in our lives, that we notice what we're up to when we are resisting sensation. There's so much projected guilt and shame onto us about feeling pleasure and about feeling pain. So we default to checking out, to going unconscious. You all know what I mean. And what's required of us as we awaken is feeling everything there is about being in a physical body, in this physical universe, experiencing the full spectrum and bandwidth of human experience, the extremes, and everything in between and beyond, and engaging all 7 of our senses. As the heart-based new humanity, we have moved beyond the limitations of 5-sense reality with sight, smell, sound, taste, touch. Number 6, our intuition. And number 7, our innate generosity and care, our ability to gift, give, which is the divine masculine principle, and our ability to receive, the divine feminine principle. There is this ginormous misconception about spiritual awakening that once we're awake, our lives are going to be perfect, we're going to have perfect relationships, perfect money and abundance flowing from every direction towards us. We're going to have perfect health, never manifest a fatal disease. We'll have perfect hair, perfect skin, the perfect body, the perfect bootay, and be carefree and happy, and never feel bad, challenged, experience loss, or have an intense emotion like anger or frustration or despair, depression, or sadness ever again. And if we do, we're not really awake. But I'm here to tell you, beloved, those are big, fat lies. And anyone who tells you that being awake and spiritually enlightened is all about that all the time is lying to you and conning you into buying into a reality that will not be sustainable and will not be pleasurable, fruitful, enjoyable. Being spiritually awake includes all aspects of living and the totality of human experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, the horrific, the beautiful. And it is in facing the light, and especially the darkness we avoid and are horrified by, that we can be free and sovereign, free from the powers that want to be, the controllers, whether that's tribal law, the global elite, or the God, goddess eaters, as I so playfully love to call them. We can be free from mind control, brainwashing, free from traumas, and realize and embody the truth of who and what we are as divine beings, as the divine in the flesh, ever being, ever evolving, and ever becoming. And I want to remind you all, beloveds, that in this post-apocalyptic state, from all that's been revealed and continues to be outed, we and the powers that want to be are all from the same source. God is all that is. There is no separation, beloveds. And, of course, the best way to maintain and cultivate awakened conscious presence is for each of us to master the skill set of facing our darkness. All the mirrors reflecting back to us, all the stuff we fear, we feel bad about, we have judgments and criticisms about, the stuff we regret, we're ashamed of, guilty about, in denial about. We are asking questions about our true divine natures, and we are tired of settling and being fearful. Our 6th sense, our intuition, as powered by the gifts of the 6th chakra, our ajna center, grants us access to the realms of all possibilities. That is, infinite solutions to all of our beautiful needs, thus birthing new paradigms and manifested realities. We are connecting with possibilities. It is our job to move formless into form. So we're asking questions, beginning with, what if? Our imposed limitations and programmed mindsets are inviting us to bust at the seams and become curious about our perceived limitations. We are meeting these limitations with great care and compassion and honesty, rather than getting caught up again and again in engaging in what I call self-violence, self-murder. You know what that is. Beating up on ourselves, punishing ourselves, withholding love from ourselves and from our loved ones. We're getting to really know ourselves and questioning and creating different realities and outcomes to so-called surefire realities. And one of them is childbirth. All the pain and screaming, okay? We've all heard those consensus reality stories seen in the media depictions and even the direct experiences of perhaps our own birthing pains and traumas. And I'm not here to minimize any of those experiences. I've been there myself. I've been a Lamaze partner for a college friend. And because of it, along with a whole myriad of other personal reasons, I made a solemn promise to myself when I was in my early 20s, in the early 80s, that I would never have children. And while I made that choice, I don't necessarily regret it, but it is a choice I do question now, here in my mid-50s, which brings us to the very potent medicine, wisdom, and graciousness of our beautiful, beloved guest and her beautiful divine contribution to our show today on Orgasmic-Ecstatic Birthing with Amber Hartnell. And so it is my deepest, deepest, deepest pleasure to introduce and bring to the show Amber Hartnell. Amber, are you there?
I am.
Hello. Thank you
Hello.
so much for gracing us with your presence and wisdom.
Oh, it's truly my pleasure to join you in this conversation today. Thank you for having me.
Yay. Well, it was my deepest pleasure and inspiration in researching you. And what's amazing is that when I came upon the YouTube version of Orgasmic Birthing, I mean, this was just last year in November, like right before Thanksgiving, I believe it was. And then I realized that the actual ABC 2020 broadcast was actually aired at the end of 2008, or maybe it was early 2009. I don't have a TV. So when I saw this Facebook post last November, I clicked it and was floored. And literally, I cried for days. I couldn't stop. It was like this elation and this sorrow and this magnificence and this deep awe that was just pouring out of me for days and days and days, and I couldn't stop it. And so I want to know if you would please tell our listeners about yourself, your background, your gifts, before we get into all of that, because you, to me, really embody the many aspects of the goddess. And so I really want to hear from you your own story as told by you.
Wow. That's a big can to open.
Yes.
Well, in short, I could really say that I like to say that I came into this life choosing to live the advanced accelerated course, so that I really arrived into intensity and a high level of dysfunction, so that I could really discover my gifts through radical challenge. And, being one who is here to be a living transmitter of ecstatic embodiment, I've discovered early on in my life that ecstasy really embraces the full spectrum. As you described in our opening, it's the willingness to dive into the heart of resistance to discover the gifts that are always inherent within them. So I've lived a very immense life of living in the fire and being forged by a great level of challenge to arrive at the place now where I truly am embodying my essence to ever finer grained degrees and living life as a congruent expression of essence. So, what I brought to birth was really how I've been living, and different techniques and capacities that have been developed for really a few decades at that point. I just applied to birth, which enabled me to have an ecstatic experience of diving into the heart of the resistance and the intensity to experience the ecstasy of total surrender.
Wow. I am I'm feeling full body tingly sensations right now just from you just sharing that. I understand that you didn't plan on having an orgasmic birth, and that it just happened, and that you only read one book during your pregnancy in preparing for the birthing of your first child. And I was really amazed when I read that, because I know myself in preparation with my friends, reading everything that I can and doing that. Tell us about that whole journey of preparing.
I'd love to. Yeah, really, when I first got pregnant, the first guidance that I received, from the internal wisdom was really about emptying out. It was so clear. It was like, do not fill your head with information. You're only going to have to unpack it later. It's really about getting out of the way, which is really at the heart of everything. And the transmission is, all my intentions at this point boil down to one, which is just show me where to get out of the way. Because if I get out of the way, then the divine orchestrates itself through me in perfect grace. So with birth, when I was preparing, it was really clear. It was like, yep, just empty out and listen and respond. So, you know, everything that I was eating, you know, everything that my body wanted, it was really about just listening to that and giving it what it needed, because we all have that internal wisdom. And it's really a matter of whether we're listening, trusting to it, and acting upon it. So that was the soul guidance. So there was one book, it was about halfway through my gestation that I was guided. A friend gave me this book, and it was called Sacred Birthing, the subtitle, Birthing a New Humanity. And I got the yes to read it. And I read it, and what it actually served for me was to affirm all of the guidance I was receiving. So it really was kind of that piece that just allowed me to trust even deeper that the wisdom that I was hearing and receiving was spot on, and that I only needed to listen to that. So that was actually the purpose of that book. And it, and one real gem that it gave me, one thing was about lotus birth, because I had heard about lotus birth, but this reading about it in this book really inspired me to actually follow through with that and to do a full lotus birth with my first son. So that was one really valuable, tangible gem that I received.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have a friend that did that, and she's got the placenta framed in this gorgeous preserved. It's absolutely lovely.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, what was your biggest challenge during the preparation? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
The challenge, well, for me, I think challenge was really balance, because at that particular point in my life, you know, we conceived, and as I lovingly refer to my husband, Nassim, at the time, we conceived, and it was weeks after we conceived that we received the funding and the big green light to go in building our research park, which we'd been, you know, working on for a few years. So we were suddenly then constructing an entire community.
Oh, wow.
So there was so much happening in my life that the challenge for me was really just continuing to claim the spaciousness of dropping in, because it was really clear the thing that I needed most was space to keep dropping into myself and unstructured space. So that was really the greatest challenge. And other than that, it was so graceful. I mean, the way my body grew and developed. And again, because I was really listening to every subtle nuance and giving it what it needed, you know, I really had a very graceful, joyful pregnancy in that way.
Can you speak more to what you just mentioned, the unstructured space, the allowing yourself to fully drop in? For a lot of women, I know I get that asked a lot, because I talk about creating sacred space for oneself, and especially for us women that are endeavoring to, like, you know, we're so inspired by so many things. And when you include children, there is a requirement for balance. And a lot of women come to me and have no idea what that is. Could you describe your take on that, your version of that for our listeners?
Yeah, and in a really simple way, I'd say that, you know, in our society that we're, you know, culturally, we're so overstimulated, and our nervous systems are on hyperdrive that, you know, it can be challenging to even know how to settle into oneself. So, you know, I found for me that, especially, again, amidst so much activity in my life and purposeful, you know, driven nature, that to actually give myself spacious windows. Like, for me, I would consider 4 hours the time that I needed, at least a couple of times a week, ideally more, where I could really unwind. So it would go through layers of allowing my nervous system to settle and unwind, and it was really about just sinking into myself, sinking into my body. And I do my only real practice is an unstructured practice, and it really is about creating the space and diving into my body and allowing the biological intelligence to move and unwind itself in the exact way it's needed. So I found for me that I'm not well served by a structured practice like a specific yoga practice or anything like that. My body knows what it needs, and as long as I give it the space and listen, then it perfectly unwinds itself. So again, it's a development of a trust and a willingness to keep diving in, and meeting all of the edges of resistance that we inevitably encounter along the way. It's like the defense structure doesn't want us to sink into the eternal within. It really will kind of distract us and create, these different distractions that keep us from diving in. So as long as we know, okay, we're going to encounter those along the way, and rather than backing up or moving with those, we keep pressing inward, It's like swallowing ourselves whole.
Wow, that is an incredible image right there. And I like what you said about really allowing yourself to meet those edges of resistance. And would you say that the resistance had a particular sort of flavor or quality that kept arising for you?
Well, I can't say that it has any particular flavor because it can vary in frequency every single day, and sometimes it's a mental chatter, sometimes it can be a physical tension in the body, whatever it is, it's again that relationship to it that matters, that commitment, that internal resolve and commitment to press into it rather than meeting it and backing up, because it kind of wants to push you back. But if you it's like a gentle pressure where you're meeting it and breathing it open. For me, it's just like, again, I'm not pushing against it and trying to get through it. I'm just meeting it in fullness and presence and moving towards it gently, but really breathing into it. So it's really bringing the breath in, bringing more life in that creates that sense of spacious openness that it keeps dissolving, and you'll reach layer by layer until it unsheaths and you arrive. And that feeling of being settled in the body, just dropped in, like the ground of our being anchored.
Yeah, beautiful. And so, did you have a lot of support from friends and family in terms of just feeling held, feeling really cradled, and anchored?
I did. I definitely had. There was a few very dear, close friends and sisters in particular that were really present for me, and just whatever I needed, I could ask for, and they were there. And so I did feel very well supported in that way. And I think that's a really big element for, mothers to really feel that they can really drop into themselves by feeling held by the field, and even just one person that has got your back, and whatever can arise, you can really rest into that rather than a subtle feeling in the background of having to hold it yourself.
Yeah, because so many women will really, it's not so much that they don't allow it. It's like this automatic default that, I'm good, I can do it myself. And yet, there is this yearning and this longing for even just the camaraderie of one or two sisters to be able to be held in that space and receive empathy and receive care, even if that care is just a phone call or a Skype session, something like that.
Exactly, and you said the key word, receive, because really entering into that state of receptivity, like I said, the empty presence, where we can empty out and be receptive, like that's what enables us to hear that voice, that inner wisdom that's guiding us into what we actually need, because if we're not dropped into that state, we can't really hear, and then thus we can't really respond, and we're not giving ourselves what we need to create the most graceful experience. So ultra receptivity.
What is your recommendation for women who are particularly challenged with that, who are really, I don't want to say stuck, but, for lack of a better way to describe it, stuck in that sort of me, I can do it, I'm superwoman, etc., and yet, the truth is, they aren't really wanting to uphold that. What do you recommend to women who are really on the edge of moving through that and moving into this new paradigm of terrific, great receptivity and opening to that?
Well, first and foremost, there has to be the genuine willingness, because it has to be a true desire to want to experience that, and that then opens the door for a willingness to be vulnerable, because really it's through our willingness to be vulnerable, to unsheath, to reveal our vulnerable heart, that we can even ask for help and even admit that there's something that we need help with, so that's the first step, and then from there there are so many resources available, but really it's that just getting to be intimate with ourselves, getting to come into a deeper level of intimacy, which then opens up the possibility for that to be met in others. And Yeah, I mean, I'm in the process of creating some programs and some different resources that can really support that field being actually experienced. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of that out there.
Well, keep us posted on that. I know that our community would be deeply, deeply blessed and open to receive your offerings with that. Gorgeous, gorgeous. So had you heard of orgasmic birthing, ecstatic birthing before, or was this just completely did it just come out of left field?
You know, I had kind of vaguely heard something that it sometimes happened with women. You know, it definitely was not something that I was aiming for or intending for. I was really simply intending to arrive present and empowered and listening. So really just being completely available for the experience. And, you know, for me, it was more aiming for neutrality, because some of what I describe and what I'll be elucidating in some of these programs is, you know, these techniques that I've experienced through different, quote, traumatic events that have really uncovered the capacity to really command sensation, because, you know, sensation, everything we experience is just sensation, and it's really how we're choosing to translate it that determines how we experience it, and we have so much more command over that than most people realize, and it really is determined by our level of resistance. So when we encounter resistance, you know, intensity, the tendency for most people is to contract away from it, the resistance, right? And then it's inevitably experienced as pain. But if we can, on the contrary, actually dive towards it, dive into the epicenter of intensity, while simultaneously scanning the body to make sure that we're not actually holding and resisting anywhere in the body, so we're experiencing that feeling of like melting from the inside out, going to where the tension is and continuing to breathe it open while diving into the intensity. That's where I've discovered that that's where the command is. So from that place of total surrender into the intensity is where we can neutralize it.
Wow.
And if we can really surrender into it totally and completely, be swallowed whole by it, then ecstasy can ensue, and that was my experience. So because I was so present and so ceaselessly moving into that point and breathing through it and spiraling with it, it just kept opening wider and wider and wider, and because it was the most intense sensation I had ever felt in my life, the level of ecstasy I experienced in that total, complete surrender was the most intense pleasure I'd ever felt up until that point, and it actually fully upgraded my nervous system, because after that, I experienced my capacity to experience ecstasy and pleasure since that first birth. It's like I'm a hair's breadth away from it in any given moment. It's like it's right there. So it really was a nervous system upgrade for me.
Wow, I am just like I'm like my mouth is just, you know, just kind of open and in this awe and childlike wonder right now. You mentioned, I'm just going back a little bit, scanning the body for resistance. What does that entail?
Well, for me, it was constant, nonstop, basically head to toe, over and over again, just looking for where I was holding. And for me, it's funny, I kept coming to my left pinky finger, that just even the slightest curl in, like holding, and my right butt cheek.
Isn't that interesting?
I know. Just those two little spots. And you know, I can recognize where we have patterns within the body of tension patterns, you know, and they can be amplified and accentuated when the intensity is increased, the volume is turned up. So I just had to continually choose over and over again to release, just keep releasing. So like my jaw was like slack and open the whole time. There was a lot of just gentle spiraling, like I was dancing a spiral from my pelvis all the way up through my head, the top of my head, just keeping the current moving rather than getting held anywhere. Because it's like with a hose, the water's still trying to get through it, but if you put a kink in it, then it's going to be ramming up against that point, you know, until it inevitably opens up again. So if we can keep that channel open. Exactly. So basically scanning over and over again, you know, and really detailed scanning, just finding where we're holding and just keep choosing to melt it open, just keep releasing. And it was ceaseless. I mean, it was 12 hours I was in labor for, and it was the entire time, my eyes were closed almost for the entire labor, and it was just really that. It was such an internal experience birthing my son in, and it was just staying so on track and so focused on that point of intensity. And there were actually moments later on in the labor where I was getting tired because I I had gone to bed at 11:30 that night. I'd actually stayed up. My body kept me up just dancing. I had done this deep, open, stretching dance for like 3 hours that night. It was guided to, and then I went to sleep late at 11:30, and then I woke up a half an hour later. My labor began. So I had only had a half an hour of sleep that night. So I entered into that state, and by the second half, there was a point where I was just getting tired, and it was kind of like a marathon. It was like, wow, I just wish I could just take a little nap right now.
Oh.
I was in the water, and I was stretched out in the water.
You were in a birthing pool, correct?
I was in a tub for the second half of the labor, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and so there were moments where in that tiredness, my attention would wane from the point of focus, and in those split seconds of a moment, I would be flooded with the immensity of the sensation, and it would become overwhelming for a moment. Wow. And I'd have to, and then in that moment, I would just direct my attention right back to the point. But what that served for me, which was really helpful about that, was I actually got to experience what it is, how so many women can be in the intensity of labor and be so overwhelmed by the experience, not having developed the tools and capacities I had developed.
Yes.
And I could feel the compassion for, oh my God, just give me an epidural, like that's too much for me to handle. I could feel that, and I was like, oh wow, that was useful for me.
Yeah.
That will help me someday.
So
I really get it.
A collective energy that came in.
Yeah,
that
it was
awareness?
collective in the sense that I could connect into the general means of women who haven't been taught to remember how to interact with sensation from this empowered place, like haven't been given the tools yet of remembrance. So it helped me for that, to have that compassion and understanding for how women could just be so overwhelmed and be like, oh my God, I just want to get my baby out, just help.
Yes, yes.
So it was helpful for that sense, yes.
Wow. That's just all I can say at this point. It's just a big wow. Now, did you have? Obviously, you had your beloveds around you, and what role did they play in terms of their presence and their assistance?
Well, yes, I had a midwife present, and although when we first went to go meet her, we were very clear, and Nessam and I are very clear that, we really want to do this ourselves, and we'd like to have you there as more peripheral support if needed. But really, we want this to be, I don't want somebody coaching me. I really want to be, birthing from the inside out. And so she was so respectful, and she really was that. She just hung in the periphery and, really just let me birth and really recognized that there was an internal wisdom guiding me, and I didn't really need any help. So she was really a wonderful anchor in the field, like a very grounding cord for me. And then another beloved sister who's really a master at energetics, and so she also too was really just field support, like just peripheral field support, just holding the field for me. And then her beloved, who was also a very dear friend of mine, and he's a wonderful photographer, and so he was actually just in charge of videoing and photographing, which, with a very sensitive presence, so that I wasn't even aware of him. And then, of course, Nassim, my husband, and he was also very tired, like he didn't sleep that night, so he was right there present for the whole experience, and often just kind of laying next to the tub and taking a nap, and present when I needed him. But it was really, honestly, for me about the internal experience. There was so much happening in so many different realms from the inside out that, like I said, my eyes were really closed most of the time, and it was really being so finely tuned to every subtle nuance that was directing me, because it was that in every moment where the breath needed to go, where I need, in the constant scanning and in that complete and utter focus on that point of intensity. That was really the experience for me. So everybody was peripheral support. It was like anchoring the field for me to go within.
Oh, beautiful! It feels like you were in the middle of this. You were in the center of this lotus blossom as it was unfolding, and you were held with all your beloveds. These outer petals, and just really, really there in support. Can you walk us through the actual birthing of your son and what that was like? Because so many of our sisters, when I've even in my own experience of being a Lamaze partner for a beloved friend, and even asking her what it was like, it was all like there was no awareness whatsoever of the actual birthing process, and so I'm just curious what that was like for you, just given all of this beautiful journey and unfolding that you were so present and aware and conscious for.
Yeah, I would love to share some of that with you. And it was, as best as I can translate it into words, because it was such a vast, expanded experience. So from the first rush, and I did call them rushes rather than contractions, as I never did feel contracted. I felt them as immense rushes of energy. So from the first rush, I felt it, and I was like, oh, this is it. This is happening. And Nissan had just laid down in bed, and I let him know. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm just going to go into my little space over here. And so he kept sleeping. And so for the first 6 hours, I was actually alone. I had created this beautiful little nesty zone of sheepskins, soft and yummy. And so I went over to that space, and I was on my sheepskins, and I basically was in the same position for 6 hours. And that position was I was on my hands and knees during the rushes. And during the rushes, the spiral would start from my sacrum and pelvis, and it was like this radical rolling spiral that was going all the way through my head as I was breathing through them, and it was ecstatic. It was profound pleasure. And then in between the rushes, in the still point in between, I would go down into child's pose, and basically my forehead was on the ground, and it was like I was drinking into eternity, into the core of my being, and I felt like energy was just pouring in from every direction, like potentizing, consolidating, like I was really bringing it in. And then the rush would rise me up on my knees again. And so I was going in between these two positions for 6 hours, and I reached such an expanded state. By the time at that point, then they'd gotten the tub ready, and the midwife had arrived, and it was like I needed help walking. Like I was so expanded beyond my physical body that it was like my knees were wobbly. It was like it took everything I could just to get into the tub and walk down the path because it was outside. And so I entered the tub, and I spent the second 6 hours in the water. I never got out of the water. And at that point, it was really like I was squatting. I was in a squatting position in the water. And again, it was just the spiral breath. But the spiral was continuous through the entirety of the process. And it just kept everything moving fluidly through me. And so in that second 6 hours I went so big. My awareness, and especially through the transition, but my awareness went so vast. It was like there was, prior to that, actually, I can describe this part, but there was two distinct moments. So through the entirety of the 12 hours, I was in a sustained state of ecstasy the entire time. Yeah. And there were two very distinct moments where I actually experienced very incredible, like, rolling orgasms. And like I said, it was the most intense pleasure I'd ever felt in my life. These orgasms were just, like, moving through me, and I was laughing, and I was crying, and my eyes were crossing and rolling back in my head. They were so immense. And there was no physical stimulation. I mean, I've read some of the comments on some of the videos, and people have all kinds of perspectives. But I was never, like I said, I was never trying to give myself an orgasm. It was all energetic. It was just the enormity of ecstasy moving through created such an experience and allowed it to emerge. So those were profound. But in the transition, in the time where baby was coming through the canal, that was where, at that point, my awareness actually stretched. I was in the stars. I mean, I could actually see cosmos all around me. It was that big in my awareness. And I was still aware of my body. Like, there was the tethering to my body I was aware of, but the bulk of my awareness was the eternal body. And I experienced myself as almost like a beacon that was bringing my son in, because he was still really far away from his body, his spirit. And so then from that space of being suspended in the stars, when a rush would come at that point, I experienced it as suddenly the stars around me torquing, like this, that started creating this vortex, this torque that just started spinning and spinning and spinning, and got tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until this tiny little, like, pinpoint, which ended up being my crown, and I would rush down through my body, and that was what manifested as a push. So I never actually intended to push or even tried to push, but it was like this cosmic funneling that was happening through my body that was pushing him out and into the world. And so every time that I'd go back out again in between the rushes, and every time it got closer and closer and closer until he finally came through. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was an incredibly cosmic experience, actually.
It's as if what you're describing, it's as if his soul came through you, through the divine, through the cosmos, into your crown center, through your body.
Yes.
And as he met his body and entered into his body and was birthed, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was the portal. I was really experiencing myself as the portal for him to enter into this realm.
Wow. I'm getting ready to cry. I'm just I'm so overwhelmed by this. It's so beautiful. I have never heard anything like this. And I'm just I feel so privileged of really holding the space right now for all our listeners and for this. This is such a paradigm shift, what you've described. This is really, truly ecstatic conscious birthing of a true divine being, this infinite loving awareness and consciousness moving in through you, through your body, into his body.
Yes. Well, Maria, I really, my experience is that this is by design. Like, this is actually what I experienced, like my availability to be a channel and a portal for this and to remain awake through the entire process and to experience the fullness of what's actually always happening.
Yes.
But it's, again, the cultural distortions that have really robbed us of our natural capacities. Like, that's really what I'm here to serve, is simply the remembrance of that which is most inherent by design.
Yes.
I'm not special. I'm really not special. I'm just simply here to be a way-shower, like a pioneer, riding on the tip of the arrow to help us remember, again, what's most inherent. And that's really been the experience of the reflection of for instance, the first birth DVD that I participated in called Birth as We Know It, where this transmission is offered. And, and it's very simple and short, but just to experience the impact of that one DVD, which is in 59 countries, it's been dubbed in 15 languages. It's created a birthing revolution across the world. Thousands of letters have poured in from women sharing that seeing my birth and hearing my story not only changed the way they birth, it changed their life. And I feel like it's because we all have that seed within us, that inherent seed that simply needs to be activated. And the activation could be as simple as experiencing a model of possibility. It's like, wow, I've been told this story for my whole life, as has every generation before me. So we've continued to replicate that story, but suddenly someone comes along and shows me what I resonate with in the deepest core of my being, which I know I'm capable of, and it activates that seed, and that seed sprouts and blooms in its own perfect way. And that's just really what I'm here to serve, is that embodying that in fullness, fearlessly, being willing to sit in the hot seat, stand in the fire, because, as you had mentioned, there's a whole array of response, beyond the positive.
Oh, my God. I was floored by that. In fact, I had this tickle in my throat when I woke up this morning, and my assistant, who is, she's kind of offline, she just had twins recently, and she texted me, and she said, whatever you do not go to your email. Do not check your email. And, of course, I'm quite rebellious. I'm told not to do something. I will by Goddess, all it is, I will do it. And there was this shocking email of, how this woman wanted me to be shut down. She was, really tired of me always edgy and always bringing up stuff that is, and that was it. It was like, okay, I to leave. So how do you burn in that seat? How do you stay in that hot seat?
Well,
because this requires presence, courage, the willingness, and the and you're so gracious and you're so lovely and compassionate. How do you do it?
Well, you just said it. The courage and the willingness. But really, for me, my position, in being a pioneer, is really that I'm not here to convince anyone of anything. I'm not here to prove anything, to defend. I'm really just here to be one model of possibility. And for those that resonate and are saying yes, wonderful. And for those that don't, it's okay. And I don't take it personally. And, really, that I just recognize that it's all just, again, a product of cultural distortion, a long-held cultural distortion, and it's just confusion. And I see all of that as really just that which is seeking its way back to love. So I just swallow it all whole. I mean, I love that expression because that's my experience. Is it just like I just suck it right back into the heart? It's like, oh, it's finding its way to me because it's actually just confusion and distortion looking for its way back home. And you know, and I can be that. I'm willing to. And like I said, because I signed up for, you know, my own lifelong curriculum of sitting in the fire, I'm well cultivated in being the eye at the center of the storm. And so it's pretty much you can send anything my way. It's not going to faze me. And you know, and part of that is the willingness to feel everything so deeply. Like it's not a, you know, like there can be a tendency in the New Age, you know, community to kind of glaze it over, like it's all love, but it's actually, for me, it's the willingness to feel it all fully, to feel deeply, and just that's the way of swallowing it whole. It's not glazing it over and putting a, you know, a nice light veneer on it. It's like, no, it's actually through the total absorption of it that it's able to be transmuted into its higher form. So just living as a transmuter, that's really it.
Beautiful. Wow. So in what ways do you feel this your orgasmic birthing experience has impacted your son, and his being? Do you have conversations with him? I mean, how old is he now? He's what, almost 10?
No, actually, my oldest son, he's 8 now. Yes. Yeah. Well, he's amazing. Both of my sons are incredible. I have a second now too, who's almost 4, and you know, the orgasmic birth is one thing, but for certainly I would say with that is with this limbic imprint, as I love one thing that Elena Tanetti-Vladimirova, who created the Birth as We Know It DVD that I attributed to her amazing work in the world that she's doing and helping people to really access and rewrite their limbic imprints. Because the limbic imprint is that which the first moments of our entry into this realm form our limbic imprint, which is basically our nervous system set point to what's comfortable, what's normal. So when we have a society of beings that are entering in a traumatic environment, you know, that is not welcomed in love and in peace, and you know, then that's a limbic imprint. Our nervous system is set at that being comfortable, so we can tend to replicate those patterns of trauma in our life until we actually remember that we do have, again, that's something we have command over. We could at any point rewrite that limbic imprint, which I did when I was 3 months pregnant with him. I did her birth shop. That's where we really connected, and I went through a 3-day birth shop where I rewrote my limbic imprint. So I was free and clear to birth in a way that was not replicating that lineage. And so I do see that, you know, he has an amazing imprint that he entered into, and his openness, his like he is such a lover by nature, like his connection to his innate sensuality, just meaning that he's very much in his body, and he's very, you know, easily expressed in his love, and he's a naturally very respectful, very considerate, very kind being, you know, and so, you know, I know we chose to design this entry together, you know, to give him the supportive conditions to bloom in the way that his soul is wanting to bloom in this realm, and you know, and then there's everything that comes afterwards, because you can birth in this way, but then the real rubber meets the road in the parenting, you know, and how we're actually raising them and how they refine us, you know, to uncover all of the unconscious patterns of the way that we were raised, and really getting to inquire into certain patterns of behaviors that are automatic, that we suddenly get faced with a very clear mirror when we're parenting, to actually unwind and re-script our own life and how we're choosing to interact, what we're choosing to pass on in our lineage, and identifying where it's like, oh, that buck stops here. That is not being passed on through me. I'm choosing something very new and different that's aligned with what's true.
Yeah, and that is so beautiful. When I came upon your interview on Elena TV regarding conscious parenting, I was in tears, because I know that for myself, my experience, you know, had I known that way back when I was in my late teens and my early 20s, perhaps I would have made a different choice, but you know, just the trauma that I endured in my upbringing and my birthing, you know, and I just being in my mother's womb too, and all of those, you know, having a conscious remembrance of all of that and it wasn't light and love-filled. So making that decision that the buck stops with me, I'm not going to continue this, and really moving through another layer of this sort of wistful longing for things to be different. But at the same time, I was so inspired because here is a new paradigm of conscious parenting, and this is like, it's such an incredible blueprint. And to just listen to how this embodiment, your embodiment practices, and your willingness to burn in the fires of love, truth, and beauty, how that embodiment and conscious awareness and this deep relationship with sensation has really served your son's growth and his own expanded perception. What are some of the values, some of your values regarding conscious parenting?
Well, fundamentally, respect. That really, it's like from those first moments that I gazed into his eyes, it was like, wow, I could only relate to you as the master that you are. Like, just seeing the wisdom, eternal wisdom just pouring through him, it's like I could only interact with that reverence and that acknowledgement of wholeness. So, in everything that I do as a parent, it's really respect is so inherent. And so from, very, very tangible ways of, really giving him the opportunity to make choices. It's like we interact with these certain levels of boundaries and showing those and embodying those, because certainly modeling is first and foremost how we teach anything. So if we're gonna teach anything, we have to be embodying it. So starting with that, really giving him the chance to, feel the freedom of being able to choose in his life and kind of master his own destiny. It's like, wow, I'm not just being told what to do. I'm actually being interacted with from a place where I'm respected. And I have the capacity to interact in my life and help design my own reality in a way that, honors the, again, the boundaries and the parameters that we're working with, but really giving that leverage of like, yeah, okay, how would you like to move? What feels true for you? And,
yes.
And then of course, just nourishment, like really creating rhythms of nourishment, identifying the true needs and redesigning around that. It's like I've discovered with both my boys that I have every Monday I split the day. Half of the day goes to my youngest son, one-on-one date time. It's like we just get one-on-one focused presence, play,
Beautiful.
whatever we want to do that day. That's our time while his older brother's in school, and then I pick my older son up, and then my younger son goes with his auntie to give me that entire afternoon to just be with my older son. And then I found that just that one simple thing where they are just so deeply nourished in presence, it changes all the dynamics. Like everything is so much more harmonious and balanced because their true needs are met. Their true needs for that one-on-one attention. Because that's been the greatest challenge in having a second child is the dilution of energy and the dilution of that deep connection. So that keeps it really steady. And I noticed that the harmony in our entire family unit when I just really identify those needs and meet them consistently. So it's always just a listening, and everything's always changing and their needs are changing as they grow and develop. So again, that place of being willing to continually deconstruct what we think we know, to really listen to what's true and respond to that.
So that it's not habituated and it's not, just kind of put on automatic. Because I know that I'm a stepmom, and so I know that for myself, I endeavor to just constantly be in that place of the moment and allowing the moment to unfold, and whatever need arises or desire arises to really be present for that, rather than we'll just set him over here and he's going to be good. No.
Yeah.
I don't relate to that. I had that, and it's like our children do not want to be, they don't want to be shut down or put on a shelf when we're ready to, whatever that is. And I witnessed so many of our children being sort of accessories to the parents, and that just for me is like, it's very heartbreaking and very it makes me angry, frankly. And so I've been known to actually speak my mind.
I'm sure you do.
Really just sort of shine the spotlight. This whole it's a requirement for us as parents to really be present and conscious in the moment with our children, no matter what. That's the priority.
It is.
And
absolutely.
to not allow the world and its demands to take precedence over that heart connection, the being is the embodiment, the nourishing, and to really make the time and space. And that's the priority. So I so deeply, deeply thank you for really modeling that. And I'm also hoping and wishing that you are going to be creating programs for that as well.
I am, definitely. That is on the docket.
Yes. Well, what would you like to impart to women and men and new moms and dads regarding, these new paradigms of birthing and parenting?
Wow. There's so much there. Well, one thing that I'd love to just drop into our pot here of awareness, because it was something that was a really hard lesson for me the first time around, was, there was all this, talk about birth and preparation for birth, but really one of the hardest places for me was the postpartum period and in my relationship, because especially with the first child, there's so many radical changes that happen all at once. Like, life is forever altered. And, and this little being requires so much. It's all consuming. And it was really, there was a strain in so many ways, and think in ways that we couldn't have anticipated, and certainly in our relationship. And as a woman, I know really for me, it took about, honestly, 2 years before I felt my libido back online, and I was feeling like a juicy woman, ready to be sensual, because honestly, my sleep patterns were interrupted. I was exhausted most of the time. I was breastfeeding, every few hours. It was like, and I was receiving so much touch, just like we were skin to skin most of the time, that that part of me, that sensual part of contact, was very fulfilled. But for my husband, it was not. And so it created a deep strain in our relationship. And I understand why it's very common for couples with a new child. Like, there's a 2-year mark where many couples end up splitting up, and I think because of that reason, because the relationship gets neglected and isn't being nourished. And there's so many ways of nourishing, keeping that connection strong, and even like the sensual connection nourished without actually having to make love for an hour, consistently. Like, that's not necessarily possible in that time. And if we can keep our perspective on a longer arc, more patient, like, okay, we know we're going to have this time, so even preparing for that, it's like, let's actually start to cultivate some practices where we can exchange, and we can have that, keep that emotional connection going. And, there's even ways, this is one thing I'd also love to just share in some of my programs is in this regard, like ways of like just really plugging in together and feeding the energy, and without having to, again, an intensive, sweaty lovemaking session, like that you can actually be sensually connected and really nourish that, to keep that environment of love so strong, so that really that's what everyone is marinating in, and everyone feels attended to and nourished, without overextending. I feel like that's something really important to consider, and even to prepare for prior to birth, that's a priority that's maintained, and you make that commitment, and you decide together how that's going to work for you. But I just want to drop that awareness into the
Beautiful.
talk.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up. And, I know that it's such a tender topic. And I know that it's come up in my group programs with the goddesses, and also the men in my Waking Gods program, where so many men will talk about how they feel neglected, how they feel like their needs as man doesn't matter anymore. Especially when there's children now, and that the gap, or that this sort of Grand Canyon space that all of a sudden is there, is never directly approached with care. And, the resentments build, there's no communication, there's just sort of, everybody sort of trying to do their own thing and trying to keep it cohesive at the same time, but it's not real. So I so appreciate you bringing that up, because it is a very, very tender place that, it's great to begin conversations about that and to, just really shed some warm, loving light and new modeling for that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and really enlivening new possibilities that, like new innovative possibilities of how we can actually connect and exchange that energy and have those true fundamental needs met that might be different than what we might be used to. And again, knowing it's like this is an interim period where we actually get to cultivate more subtlety together and actually discovering how that subtlety, when we actually come into contact with those subtle currents, how then when we engage in more, overt lovemaking, that's where the immense pleasure gets unleashed when we've actually connected into those subtleties. So really looking at it as a gift and an opportunity to cultivate in other realms that just might not have been cultivated prior for many people.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, what's on the horizon for you these days, beloved?
Wow, it's a very ripe moment for me. I'm at this place where I'm finally actually stepping up onto this global stage that's been awaiting my presence. I was about to 4 years ago and being offered many opportunities, and I was just joyfully saying yes and about to leap, and then I conceived my second son. I was like, okay, well, the world's going to have to wait a few more years, because for me, I know especially those first 3 years of a child's life are so imperative to establish their foundation. And I knew I would be out of integrity in my mothering if I was attempting to show it for the rest of the world at the same time. I would be too diluted. So I chose to put everything aside until this moment of now. And my youngest son, he's turning 4 in April, and he's so solid, so secure in our connection and love that I can now kind of weave back and forth. And I don't ever spend more than 2 weeks away from my children, but it's like now I am actually expanding out into the world, and so there's a lot happening all at once, many opportunities that all are threads weaving a very glorious tapestry that is basically bringing this transmission out to the world. So my very first offering that I'm in the midst of crafting right now, very simple first offering, is I'm going to be offering a 9-month program of basically it's going to be ecstatically birthing into being, but it's really basically going to be offering a 9-month womb space. So whether you're birthing a child or a project or simply the next emergent version of yourself, I'll be offering this 9-month womb space that will be a weekly call, 3 weeks on, 1 week off for 9 months, and it'll be a 90-minute call. And the first half of the call will be really basically a guided transmission of embodiment. So it'll be really offering very tangible tools of to experience what it is for essence to incarnate into this body, to feel that, and to really dive into that experience. And interaction with the field. And then the second half of the call will be open to questions to allow the transmission to be guided towards whatever it is the collective is actually really wanting to be receiving in that moment. Because really, the transmission coming through me is so much more fundamental than childbirth. It's really showing how birth is really how creation manifests into form in this realm. So it's really about how are we interacting with those creative currents. Like how much can we learn how to get out of our own way to allow ourselves to be animated by something far greater than ourselves in a very grounded, tangible, practical way, and how do we live open as love in that. So that's really the heart of the transmission. So I'll be offering those 90-minute calls 3 times a month, and then every week the group will receive an email in their inbox that will contain an invitational practice. So ways that we can play with it and integrate it into daily life. Like, so we're actually bringing it all the way through stitching realms and to live open as love. And a beloved Elijah Ray, who's an extraordinary musician, he offers these sound light experiences where he weaves these rich tapestries of sound frequencies that are just exquisite. Beautiful. And so him and I are actually going to be offering as a bonus, we're going to be linking in actually next week and channeling a sound light, a 90-minute sound light experience that basically is creating the sonic temple, this womb temple space that will be a link. Yeah, that alone will be of immense value, but so that everyone who's in it can receive that and just marinate in that as often as they like to really allow the molecules to transform, because it will be basically 9 months to really birth into a whole new version of experience. So that's coming very soon. And anyone who's interested, my website's in the process of being constructed. She just put up basically a picture and an opt-in box so that anyone who wants to join the list to be informed of what's being offered can go ahead and click on that and be added and stay in the loop.
What's the address again? It's what is it? Ecstasy
Embodied.
With
ExtasyEmbodied.com. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll have that. We'll have that up on the Human Spirit Radio site, and also on the replay site as well.
Wonderful.
And I'm buzzed. I feel really buzzed. Like I was nourished with beautiful food, beautiful water, beautiful breathing, beautiful company, beautiful wisdom. Any thoughts you wish to share? Anything you'd love to close with?
Well, just really offering a deep breath of gratitude for you, Maria, and creating this space. Like, I so deeply appreciated how you opened the space of really helping to remind everyone about what it is to really allow our essence to incarnate here and to really live open as love. And so thank you to everyone who is present today and who, is remaining curious and open to new possibilities of how we can actually incarnate into this realm and allow for the birth of an entire new culture on this planet that is really designed in the likeness of love.
Thank you so very much. I received that with great joy and immense pleasure. All right, beloved.
And actually, I am inspired to share, if you're open, I am inspired to share one of my poems. It just came
Beautiful.
right now as I was speaking to that. And I'm scrolling right now. This one is called Reformed by Rapture. And it's a very juicy and delicious one I think you might resonate with.
Okay, beautiful.
The flow of love rushes and gushes through. A passionate torrent reorganizing the landscape of neurology. Pleasurable sensation spills the banks, flooding trodden paths of ingrained response, displacing dilapidated beliefs, clearing hazardous overgrowth. Ecstasy makes way for coherent architecture, repatterning in the likeness of love, laying tracks and building bridges of beauty, generating forms that support life unfurling its natural splendor, restoring truth as in former, regenerating generations of distortion, ancient lineages ameliorated, reconciled in wholeness, soul splayed open in devotional surrender. The inherent divine blueprint reveals its brilliance. Past imprints pale as rapture reigns supreme.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much for that. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful.
A pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for the opportunity. It's such my deep honor and joy to serve and to continually scatter the seeds in the field of possibility and nourish them with love.
Thank you so much, Amber Love, for gracing us with your beauty and wisdom and experience and your offerings. And thank you all, beloveds, for listening. Thank you, Jessica, for engineering our show. And next up on our beautiful Human Spirit Radio Network, every second Friday of the month, we have Jai Cross at 2 p.m. Pacific, his new series, The 7 Sacred Directions. And on Valentine's Day at 2 o'clock, Honoring the South and the Element of Fire. That is his program that's coming up every third Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific, 9 to 11 Eastern. We have Jessica Romaquet, You're Already Psychic, her beautiful new show, and it's a call-in show. And You can receive a free reading on the air. Every third Friday, we have our Holy Mother Goddess of our radio network, the Sarah McCroskey, and her show, Human Spirit Radio. Every fourth Friday of the month, we have my girl, Amanda L.O.S. Johnson, hosting her show, Conscious Evolution of Divine Feminine Archetypes. My name is Maria West, and with Jessica Varga McKay, our lovely engineer holding space on the East Coast, and you have been listening to Waking Gods and Goddesses, Embodying Divine Wisdom and the Sensual Life here on the Human Spirit Radio Network. So join us every first Friday of the month, 2 to 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m., 4 p.m. Pacific sometimes, for Waking Gods and Goddesses. Our next show is Friday, March 7th, with Max Van Praag of Private Matters TV, Thriving on Intimacy, Awaken Millions to Healthy Relationships. So, beloveds, check us out on HumanSpiritRadio.com for details and free downloads of all our shows. We are also on iTunes, and if you do like our work, which we do for free, please won't you consider making a donation on our site. And you can like our Facebook page. You can also find me there as well. You can also come to my page, WakingGodsandGoddesses.com, and when you opt in, you can receive my free Nature of Reality training and Chakra Attunement meditation for free. My upcoming book is finishing all the final edits and is going to be beautifully, ecstatically birthed. She is on her way, so stay tuned. Practice your juicy hugging, my beloveds. 30 seconds minimum. Full contact with a friend, a beloved, a family member, a stranger, maybe. And so until next time, do be the love that you are. Share your love, enjoy your breath, enjoy your body and your sensual life. You are the divine in the flesh, infinite loving awareness and consciousness, having a human experience. Thank you so much. Love and blessings to all. Bye-bye, beloveds. Until next time.
That's it for now. Thank you so much for listening along. I so appreciate it. Amber Hartnell's information is below in the description box, along with some links pertinent to the ecstatic orgasmic birthing, along with my contact information. So bye-bye for now, beloveds. Mwah!